Why you're stuck in Division 2? In no particular order. Because... Hey, before we get any further into this video, I just want to point something out really quick that I fear will be a big hiccup for a lot of you watching this video. As many of you know, I am not ranked Division 2 or semi-pro within the PB Leagues system. My hope is that you can judge the merits of my points that I make in this video, as opposed to getting hung up on whatever rank I am in PB Leagues. I've been an avid viewer and studier of the game of paintball for the last 17 years, so I feel confident in being able to speak to these things. But if you disagree with what I'm pointing out as to why, as to the reasons why I think people get stuck in Division 2, please feel free to let me know down in the comments below. I'd love for this to be a healthy discussion where we all can learn and grow from this. As you guys know, my whole aim of this channel is to help people grow and improve in paintball. It's not to put people down and make them feel bad. So please share your knowledge if you've got it. I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments. If you like the video, as always, give it a like. Thanks. Because you play robotic paintball, which I know for some of you this is kind of unfortunate. So if you guys remember what I've said, I gotta make sure this is close to me. So the way that you get to Division 2 is you play the most correct paintball that you can, right? Minimize your mistakes as much as possible. The problem is that when you get to Division 2, like, being successful in every division up until Division 2, you actually can be successful in Division 2 playing that way, but you're always going to run into issues trying to get out of Division 2 because there's a lack of creativity there, if that makes sense. So yes, you play robotic paintball. This is easily punishable. Number 2, still struggling to hold zones. I would argue that Division 2, like the upper echelon teams in Division 2 play a lot of pocket play. Like, I would say with the exception of Vegas Brawlers, because obviously Vegas Brawlers have been successful in Division 2 at the WCPPL, but Division 2 and the NXL is a lot of zone control in the upper division, or in the upper portions of that division. It is a ton of zone control. It's a lot of, you go for low percentage plays. High risk, low reward. I've seen this a lot. So, there's a lot of situations in which, like, especially if you watch a lot of Solus photography, if you watch a lot of Division 2 from Solus photography, there's a lot of plays that people make that you just kind of scratch your head and you're like, why did you risk your body in that gun battle? Like, you had positioning over them, you didn't need to take that challenge. There's a lot of things that you'll notice if you look for it in Division 2 where that happens all the time. You still haven't learned, well, I want to be as direct as possible. You can't seem to slow down your play when it's appropriate. Okay, I spelled that right. So this is kind of goes hand in hand, but like with the high risk, low reward sort of plays, or low percentage plays, we're talking like plays that work 30% of the time. Like, why would you? I mean, yeah, if it works, then great, you went up a bunker, but like, was it really worth your body to take that play? Division 2 is riddled with those, in my opinion. But then the next thing is, there's a lot of times in which the reason why I think pocket play works really well in Division 2 is because it slows people way down, and there's a lot of teams that are uncomfortable with being slowed down because they're coming from Division 3 where fast, aggressive gameplay is how you win games. And what's interesting is that the transition then, there's a transition that takes place from Division 2 to semi-pro where it's no longer about playing the most correct paintball only, and it's no longer a factor of just holding zones and controlling people through those zones. It's actually learning when to turn on the gas and drop the zones to go attack, right? Like your back players being creative and getting creative, which is something that we'll talk about here in a second when we get to the how to address these. So you can't seem to slow down your play what's inappropriate. A lot of times teams don't know what to do in Division 2 when they can't move anywhere. It's actually one of the ways that we kind of threw Vegas Brawlers off of their game, is because we came from a camp that was just so used to just shooting zones, and the advantage to that is that if you hit your shots, then they start to panic because it's like we can't get control and we're getting killed when we try to take ground. So let me think, what else? What are some other trappings that I noticed with Division 2? I think paintball IQ is still needing work. This is the division when... this is the division where knowing what to do in every situation is very specific. So this is really the grind of Division 2. And this has everything to do with playing rote systematic paintball. So again, Division 2, you can be very successful by playing the most correct paintball you can and minimizing your mistakes. But if you're trying to get out of Division 2 and into semi-pro, what really is a factor here is experience for a lot of people. And that's because there's a lot of games that you'll lose where there was a single decision that you made that was the wrong one, but it's not any other situation you've ever found yourself in before, right? And that sounds like very vague, but truly that's kind of the issue with Division 2. All right, I think we have maybe one more to talk about. Your snap shooting, running and gunning, and off break shooting is unrefined. So this is, and what I really mean by this is just like you'll miss out opportunities to win points or games because you haven't been putting in the work to improve those skills, right? We could say this about every single division, but I think the trapping of Division 2 is that a lot of people's individual skill in Division 3 is what made them successful, like we've talked about. And so that when you move into Division 2 and you're coming off of that high of like, all right, I'm a good gunfighter, I'm a good running, and I'm good at running and gunning, I can hit my shots off the break, then you stop putting the time in to get to improve those skills. And so depending on how long you stay in Division 2, you can run into the trap of thinking to yourself, I don't need to work on these things because I have experience. I had Division 2 experience. I don't ever need to work on them. And if you watch, top pro teams, every single one of their best players are, look at Ronnie Dizon in Houston Heat. Maybe he's not their best Dorito player anymore. I still think he is. But Ronnie Dizon practices snap shooting every single week. Every single week, Ronnie Dizon practices that. I feel like Division 2 is where all the mistakes you get away with in lower divisions gets punished heavily. Yes. Couldn't have said it better. That's absolutely the case. Because semi-pro is a wall. Like, I think upper Division 2 and semi-pro is just like a brick wall that is a rude awakening. And that's the thing that sucks, is that like the gap between Division 2, even upper Division 2, and, well, maybe not upper Division 2, but like the gap between bottom Division 2 and like middle to high semi-pro is a very wide gap. I would argue it's much wider than even the bottom of Division 4 all the way up into the bottom of Division 2, which sounds kind of crazy, but I truly think that, at least in our experience and my experience, I've never played a team or played teams that were so aggressive that it was really hard to stop their aggression. Like, yeah, Vegas Ballers is aggressive, but like, it's not that hard to stop their aggression, and it makes sense in what they're doing. But like, to play semi-pro teams where it's like, it's so hard to stop these guys from taking the ground from us, which really just means that you need to understand, you need to be working in two-man teams as much as possible, because that's where I feel like you excel in semi-pro, is you have these really great connections on the field. So because I felt like in the Sunshine State Major, it felt as though I'm not saying that this is my teammates' fault or anything like that, but it felt like I was the only person in some situations trying to stop their Dorito player, for example, right? Maybe that wasn't the case, and it probably wasn't, but that's what it felt like, because if I dropped my gun, that guy took ground. So there's some kind of magic that happens when you've played together for so long, especially in a division like semi-pro, where if my gun drops, I know somebody else on the D side is going to pick it up, or whatever the case is, right? But that window gets so small in semi-pro that it's like super, super hard to stop the bleeding when people are taking ground on you. But can you give us a specific example of that unstoppable aggression you encountered? Yeah, so it's just that. I remember, so playing against, Wolfpack did it to us. Wolfpack mercied us. Didn't experience it so much against newbies because they played back Who was the first team we played? Well, TCP Machine was kind of this way as well. I'm pretty sure it was Struggle. Struggle was the one that I was like, holy crap, dude, these guys are insane. Like, Struggle was a team that was like really hard to stop from just taking ground. I think it was also partly because I'm pretty sure Struggle was the team that we played on day one, if not the first team we played. But it was really, really hard to stop their Dorito guy because he would get into the Dorito and you'd be shooting at him and then he'd take like a weird inside shot on you and it would get you to flinch even a little bit, and then the guy's gun battling you the entire time to gain control. And it's like, holy crap, guys, can anybody else help me here? Because like, and unfortunately, I don't remember the Dorito ones being able to see each other, so it really is the inside guy that can stop it, and so it's on me. But like, as soon as he gets past the Dorito 1, it's like I can't see the Dorito 2 at that point from the home, and then it's just an immediate like, okay, we're like massive bleeding right now. Like as soon as I lose him from the Dorito 1 to the Dorito 2, he can get up to the 50 without me stopping it. Whereas, you know, there's probably other teammates of mine that can see that. It's just, from my perspective, I can't. And so as soon as he goes, I have to immediately run up to the center tower. I don't remember what we called it, but I have to run up to the center tower, if not to the 50, and I run the risk of him taking that bite and looking for that move, which people would do all the time. They would get to Dorito 1, it would be that one-on-one gun battle, and maybe I would, you know, I'd drop my gun, or I wouldn't even drop it, I just wouldn't, you know, their shots are so accurate, I didn't want to die, and so I would let it go. He would take the bite immediately. His teammate would then start putting pressure on me, following up behind, so then I'd have to go up to the 50, or essentially up to the tower on the snake side, be looking for that Dorito guy, and he was never in Dorito 2. He was always Dorito 3 or the 50 right after that, and then I'd have to go up to the center 50 and hopefully pick that guy up. But the problem is that even when you go to the 50, if he is in the 50 at that point on the Dorito side, he's already wrapping on the Doritos and getting kills. And that happened, to be fair, that happened even in pro. Like if you watch the pro division, that's what happened. But like, it is so hard to stop that on that layout specifically, because nobody else can really pick up that shot except for maybe the god and the snake side, I think. But it's just because that huge brick blocked every, you know, angle that the Dorito side had against their mirrors. So it was like really, really hard. I remember that first game being like, holy crap, you have to shoot constantly. I've never felt more, okay, of all the weaknesses that I have as a player, I never considered my shooting and loading to be a weakness, or like a big weakness that I needed to work on, more so than I did at that tournament. Because I'm talking like, if you're not still shooting 10.5 BPS as you're loading, that guy is going to take that. And I'm not trying to like overhype anything. I really mean that. If you can't one-handed keep 10.5 going accurately while loading, then not dropping your gun as a back player, they will take that from you. It is incredible. Like, because the thing is, on that layout specifically, those Dorito players don't have any other job to do because the snake isn't pushing up the field. So they're waiting for that pattern in your shooting to slow down or to change for them to then head check and see what you're doing. And so I remember being like, not panicking, but like feeling like, holy crap, like, you know, because it's hard to, I can't two finger shoot with my left hand very well. I don't know why. I used to be able to, I thought, but I can't seem to do it very well anymore. And so when I do that, I have to one finger click, and you know, that's easier to hold the gun up, but it's harder to hold the 10.5 that way for me. And so I just remember like on the left side of the field shooting, being like, holy crap, this is really hard. On the right side, it was easy. Like right side, I could hold an accurate shot and start shooting. So I learned from that scenario that like I need to practice holding my gun with one hand on the left side and keeping a 10.5 or 10.2 whatever BPS while loading, because again, any sort of change in that rhythm of shooting, they're going to take that from you immediately. So anyway, that's a long-winded response. I'm sure there's something that we can glean from what keeps you stuck in Division 2. I think I'm going to put what you said, Preston, here. All of your bad habits will prevent you from moving up at this point in your career. So this is, you know, people who drop their guns to load. That's very common. That's a very common thing to prevent people from moving up in divisions. Or like switching your hand to load or whatever the case is. A lot of times that will be what stops people from moving up in Division 2, because it's, you know, it's issues that weren't problems in previous divisions, right? Like what you said, Preston. So, all right. How do you then correct the first issue, you play robotic paintball. This is easily punishable. Practice being... I got something in my face. Practice being creative. I feel like I do. I can see it out of the corner of my eye. I don't know. Maybe you guys can see it. So practice being creative. This is really, really important. This is something that we're working on right now. Or at least I feel like I'm trying to work on as a center player. It's easy to play rope paintball as a center player because you can still be very successful that way. As a number one, you need to learn to be creative, and that's why I've enjoyed playing the number one during practice, because I miss playing the number one. I think it's so much fun. But practice being creative. Put yourself in comfortable situations. BKI / Ryan Greenspan drill. So this is a really cool drill that we learned on our clinic that was just awesome, but it's usually, I think, a 3-on-3. I think you could do a 4-on-4. But yeah, the Ryan Greenspan drill, I don't know what he calls it, but you just put a bunch of bunker names in a hat or in a box, and then every player on each team draws those, and whatever bunker it is, you got to go play that bunker. And I thought it was so much fun. It was so creative and so fun to play like a pin that's right next to the guy who's in the 50. Like, it's uncomfortable, and it also teaches you how to just be versatile and like dodge paint, and you know, maybe go take that big bite to just get the player out because you're in a worse position than them. Like, it was really, 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 really cool. I love that drill. So BKI has a video on it. It's essentially put a bunch of bunker names in a hat, draw which bunker you're going to play in, 3-on-3, whatever bunkers you get, that's what it is. So super fun drill, really, really helpful. Number 2, still struggling to hold zones. I don't really know how to say this, except, or I don't know, there's lots of ways that this might be an issue, but for me it was practice shooting an accurate stream one-handed while loading. To me, I think that's where most people, like, it's not hard to shoot a zone with 2 hands, but I think where it falls apart is when people load too late, so they have a dip, they have a stop in their stream that they're shooting, or it's that they drop their gun when they go to load, or it's that they're not very accurate when they load one-handed, or it's just that even while they're holding their gun up, like me, they struggle to keep it up to 10.2 or 10.5. I don't remember what it is. So that's something that you can practice. It's hard to practice that without spending a ton of money, because obviously you need to have the paint to do it. So I don't have an answer for that, but it's definitely something that you can practice, and you should if that's something you struggle with. Number 3, you go for low percentage plays. This understanding it's a 2-parter for me. It's like, this is fixed by understanding the game from a macro perspective, but also having the perspective in game to not throw away your body or try and do everything yourself. So this is a mistake that's born out of several different branches, or whatever you want to say. Because part of the issue is that people go for low percentage plays because they're used to being the guy who wins the game for their team, right? If you remember, Division 3 is where you win tournaments or win games because of your individual skill. So if you've come from a Division 2 team, whether you were plucked out of that team and put on a new one on Division 2, or you as an entire group moved up, if you're not cognizant of the fact that you won those games because you just outplayed other people, that you run the risk of constantly trying to be the guy to win the game for your team, and therefore you're always risking your body when you do that, right? There's certainly times in the game, in the series, for you to do that, but it's really, really hard for people to trust their teammates. And that's actually an element that we probably should have talked about in Division 3 as a way to get out of Division 3, is to learn to trust your teammates. But it's especially true in Division 2, that you absolutely have to be able to trust your teammates. And that either means that you need to get new teammates, or you need to stop playing paintball. And Division 2 is that division for a lot of people. Division 2 is the division that really chops a lot of people out, because it's like, oh, this isn't fun anymore for me because I can't be successful by my skill alone, right? It's like, oh, if I'm getting shot at and if I have 2 people shooting at me and they don't want me to play the game, then I just have to sit here and wait till they're done or until my teammates win the game for me. And people do not like that. It's like really hard for people to get over that, because that's the criticism that I give a lot of people when I watch them play. It's like, dude, you know you have 2 people shooting at you right now. You don't need to do anything. You just need to tell your teammates that you have 2 people shooting at you and let them go to work. And then it's like, well, you know, I just was trying to do, you know, it's like, you just stop trying to do everything. That was one thing that Ryan said to me quite a bit, which I thought was very helpful. But, and I will say this though. Oh, let me say what he said. So Ryan told me throughout the clinic several times, let your teammates do the hard job. Let your teammates do the hard work for you. Now, I think the reason he said that to me is because in many drills that we were doing, I was playing with some of our D4, D5 guys. And so it's like, I know that I can be really aggressive and that if I want to win the drill, like let's say I'm going against Sage and Nick and then one random person, and then it's me and 2 of our Division 4 or 5 guys or some of the beginner players that are just trying out, which happens several times. It's like, well, if we're going to win this drill, I got to go to work. But his whole point was like, make your teammates do the hard work. Tell your teammates what to do. Like, because in certain scenarios, I'm not in the position to win the point for our team, just in how the point has developed, right? I might be in a position where I can't really afford to be trying to do everything myself because all they have to do is put pressure on me and gridlock me down, and then if I risk my body and die, then the game's over anyway. So the best thing for me to do is just stay alive, tell my teammates where they're at, and tell them what to do. That's the thing that I'm trying to get better at, is telling my teammates what to do, as opposed to just, here's the information that you need, now go to work. I think that can work, but we're getting to the point now where it's like, it's hard to be able to process that information or to be thinking all the time about what your teammates need based off the information they're giving you. So instead, it's easier to just say, hey, Sage, shoot the Dorito 1. You know, that's a much easier thing to process. And then if it can't work, if he can't see the Dorito 1 or it's not going to work, then he can tell me that. But it's like, if I'm just shouting Dorito 1 and expecting him to put pressure on the guy and then I die because of it, that's on me. That's my fault, right? All right. You can't seem to slow down your play when it's appropriate. Oh, wait, did I finish this? This is fixed by understanding the game from a macro perspective, but also having the perspective in-game to not throw your body away. To not throw away your body or try to do everything yourself. Yeah, so what I mean by this first statement is just like having a holistic perspective of the game is really important, because again, I look at paintball in many cases as a game of percentages. Like you guys have heard me say this before when we're talking about snap shooting. Like the longer you snap shoot, you can look at it in 2 different directions, but the more you snap shoot with the same opponent, the higher percent chance you are to getting shot. Just because your percent chances are increasing every time you're exposing yourself, and maybe your rhythms are kind of lining up such that maybe he has the slight advantage or whatever the case is, right? So the longer you snap shoot, in my mind, with the same person in the same kind of set, the more I consider that to be a risky play, that it's just kind of reckless, right? Maybe you can have a 2 or 3 shot snap battle and then nobody dies and it's fine and just let it go. But if you're going like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 snapshots in a row, your chances of dying just go through the roof. And so to me, I just look at, okay, what benefit do you gain by making this play? Was it worth, and was it a calculated move, right? So for example, let me just add some context to this and then we'll move on, I promise. So there might be a scenario in which you've got 2 guns on you, but you know that you're the guy to break open the point, and it might be a high percent chance that you die. Maybe let's even say like 55%, 60%. It's a 50-50 snap battle or whatever. And you take that and you die. It's like, that's okay, because we all understood that that's what you absolutely had to do. It's like when I streamed, Thursday, when I told you guys how I was in the center and the last point against newbies where we should have tied them, or we could have tied them, and I just sat in the center 50. You best believe that the percent chance of me dying in that point by just running at the field was like 100%. There was like almost 100% chance I was going to die there. But the hope was that I could get a kill to blow open the point, right? And so even though my chances of dying were through the roof, it was still the right play for me to make, to go and try to kill somebody and then have my team clean up after that. Now, whether they did or not is not within my control, but I failed my team because I didn't make that first play, right? And so it's sometimes just a matter of understanding it. And I think that's what makes Alex Rodriguez really good. A-Rod is just Like, everybody thinks he's a really good center player because he's so good at understanding. He's like, in my opinion, he's really good at finding the gaps, one, so that he reduces his chances of dying when he does that run through. But even when he does the run through, he almost always takes like 2 bodies. Like, the guy's insane when he runs down the center. So anyway, all right. You can't seem to slow down your play when it's appropriate. So this is just, I don't know how to say this, but practice playing down body situations / defensive situations. So this is something I actually think we're really good at as a team, as a semi-pro squad, but it's actually, I think, one of our hurdles, which is that we're really good. I think we're really good at slowing down teams because we're really good at playing on our heels. The problem is we're not very good at playing on our toes. We're not very good at being super aggressive and like really just suffocating our opponents. And I think we're really good at this because we've played a lot of scenarios. We've played a lot of down body situations. We've played a lot of defensive and offensive types of scenarios. And so I think as long as we have in our minds, like, okay, it's go time, like we need to push down the field and go, we can put it together, but it's just not our natural state of being. We're not a naturally aggressive team. We're much more of a team that's more kind of neutral, if not more defensive, where we really just start the point in kind of a neutral state, and then we start to get more and more defensive the longer the point goes without us getting a kill. But if we get a kill and we're up on bodies, we're pretty good at being aggressive. But if we get a kill and we lose a body, we kind of default back to being in a neutral mindset or a defensive mindset. It just kind of depends. So that's something that we need to work on as a squad. But that's something that I think is why we felt comfortable at moving out of Division 2 and why we felt like we saw some success there, is because we were stopping a lot of teams that were really aggressive historically, like Padres, like CEP or whoever it was. I can't remember them. I can't remember their names now. But anyway, number 5, Paintball IQ is still needing work. This is the division where knowing what to do in every situation is very specific. Yeah, unfortunately, this progress here comes with tournament experience and learning from your failures, not mistakes. Well, it's both, but those are mistakes / failures. So having a humble attitude is why it's so important. Humble mindset / attitude is so important here. So that's again why I've said in my mindset video, like, this is why it's so important, is because if you come into Division 2 thinking that you're the shit and you've got all this experience, maybe you've got several tournament wins under your belt, and you're just not willing to critique every single part of your gameplay because you tell yourself, like, oh, my snap shooting's fine, that's not the reason I'm losing, or like, oh, my form when I go to kneel and snap shoot is fine, like, this isn't why I'm losing. As long as you have areas of your gameplay where that are kind of like untouchable because you think that they don't need any progress, you will always be stuck in Division 2, or you will be in semi-pro and unsuccessful. All right, your snap shooting / running and gunning / off the break shooting is unrefined. Recognize. Whoa, hold on. Recognize that you always need to be working on your fundamentals. I mean, it's a recognition which then precedes action, so it goes without saying that you should then do something about it. 7, all of your bad habits will prevent you from moving up at this point in your career. We kind of said this already for number 5, but critique every part of your gameplay. Nothing should be off limits. If you want to go pro, you have to be willing to improve every part of your... I don't want to use play, but whatever. We will. So yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think for Division 2. I mean, I think once we get to Division 3 and beyond, there's a lot more that could be said on each of these, but I think this is satisfactory. I don't know how you guys feel, but... Any questions from anybody before we move on? You doing good so far?